Godzilla was first released in 1954 with the movie Godzilla. Directed by Ishiro Honda, the film started a 70-year franchise which still goes strong. In celebration of the Kaiju's 70th birthday, I'm here to talk about his best ability. It's not his atomic breath, flying, or magnetism, his ability to adapt throughout the ages. In his original movie, Godzilla started out as a villainous monster who represents nuclear power and war. The effect he brought on the world and characters mirrors that of a nuclear bomb. The way he destroys cities and brings radiation is just how a nuke would affect the city. From then on, he's had several different roles, interpretations, and meanings. He's been able to represent the environment, being a symbol for the persistence and dominating power of nature over man. He's been used to represent genetic engineering and the dangers it can bring. He's gone from a villain, a hero, then back again to a villain several times. However, you think that eventually Godzilla would get boring, but he hasn't. This is due to his ability to change with the times and what the story needs. When the original story came out, it was less than a decade after the bombs were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. The effect of nuclear war was still very much in the minds of the Japanese people, which reflected on the kaiju they made. Later on, pollution and its dangers became more of a problem for Japan and the world. Thus, the lizard adapted to change and represent what was in the mind of the people at the time. Another great thing about his adaptability is that nearly any genre can use Godzilla. He can be used for a wartime story, or he can be used for a sci-fi adventure film in space. He can be used for a kids' comedy film. His ability to do whatever you want really adds to the persistence of his character. Without this ability, he wouldn't have lasted 70 years. This also brings up another topic: how Godzilla should not always be used to represent nuclear power. One of the best things about -1 is the new Godzilla, and how he represents nuclear power. But if that was every Godzilla movie, it would get boring, which is why he's not always about nuclear power and warfare. Now, let's talk about the history of Godzilla's adaptability. We already mentioned how he started off as a metaphor for nuclear power and a villain in the original film, and that also continued in the sequel, Godzilla Raids Again. Although he was more of a heroic character / anti-hero in this movie, but overall, he's a villain. As the Showa era continued, he became more and more sillier / heroic, with movies like Godzilla vs. Kong, Invasion of the Astro Monster, and Son of Godzilla. The more comedy and lighthearted tone for the character in film was needed in order to survive in the film industry and compete against other kaijus. Godzilla had to appeal to more children in order to stay afloat. These movies demonstrated how Godzilla can still represent things like Japan itself and nuclear warfare power, while still being appealing to both kids and adults. Godzilla changed constantly throughout the Showa era, changing its designs, powers, theme, message, and tone in order to stay relevant. This culminated in the Showa era in 1975 with Terror of Godzilla due to its box office failure. Despite the downer ending, the Showa era truly demonstrated Godzilla's adaptability and how it made him one of the best monsters to come out of Japan. After 9 long years, Godzilla came back in 1984 with The Return of Godzilla. In this movie, Godzilla is closer to his 1954 interpretation, being an antagonist in the film. However, like he always did, Godzilla adapted and changed. Due to the disappointment of Return of Godzilla at the box office, in the next film, Godzilla vs. Biollante, became more of an anti-hero. This continued throughout the Heisei era as he became more and more sympathetic. He even got his very first son. We shall not speak of his horror. To become more and more sympathetic with the audience. The Heisei era ultimately concluded in 1995 for Godzilla vs. Destroyer in order to make way for the American Godzilla. Ultimately, the Heisei era is a great demonstration of how Godzilla's ability to change and adapt made it one of the best, if not the best, single era of Godzilla films. After TriStar released their Godzilla film in 1998, Toho wanted to show the world what Godzilla really looks like after, that thing. And they gave us the Millennium era. One of the best parts of the Millennium era is how it truly showed Godzilla's ability to adapt and change. It started out as more of an anti-hero in Godzilla 2000. When an audience didn't receive the movie as well as Toho hoped, it changed to be more of a heroic character in Godzilla vs. Megagears. Then he went to be more of a villain in GMK, being possessed by the souls of the victims of Japan in World War II. When audiences and critics received that movie well, in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla and Tokyo SOS, he remained as an antagonist. When those movies underperformed, he changed again to be more of an anti-hero in Final Wars. The era truly demonstrated how he can change depending on what is needed for either the studio, the audience, or the writers. Most of the characters in media won't be able to do this, but Godzilla can. Even now, Godzilla's adaptability is still arguably the most important part of his character. Take more recent films in the Railway era, like Shin and the Monsterverse. Just as how in 1971, pollution was on the mind of people and writers, leading to the environmental film Godzilla vs. Hedorah. The Fukushima nuclear disaster and the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami were very much still in the minds of the Japanese people in 2016, with the release of Shin Godzilla. In this movie, just as how Godzilla mimicked how a nuke affected the city in 1954, in Shin, he's a perfect mirror of the natural disasters of Fukushima and Tohoku, representing the earthquake and tsunami, and how they had and the effects they had on Japan. His ability to adapt and change led to one of the most impactful and best movies of the franchise. On the other hand, take the Monsterverse. When it started out, it's more of a serious and grounded take on the kaiju. However, people didn't really like that and want to see more of the Titans. Thus, Godzilla adapted and became much more of a star in the later movies. In conclusion, the best part of Godzilla is his ability to adapt and change. You can use him for everything. It can be a silly movie for kids or a grounded and serious critique of nuclear war. This makes him arguably one of the best characters in all of fiction. His ability to change makes it so that no matter how old you are, what you've been through, your opinions, your thoughts, there will always be a Godzilla movie for you.